Welcome everyone to another special event of Tea Time with Tommy. And we have, of course we have Noel, but we have a special guest here, guys. Yes, European wrestling legend, the Rebel. StarBuck is here. Thank you, sir, for joining us on your busy schedule.
My pleasure.
Absolutely. So yeah, let's get right into it.
Sure.
StarBuck. First question. What inspired you to become a professional wrestler, to get into the professional wrestling industry?
Well, I think I was about 6 years old back in the day. I was living in Timmins, Ontario, the same place where I was born. It's the hometown of Shania Twain also. And we were visiting a family friend's place with my folks. I'm an only child, so I was in the living room. My folks were in the kitchen with this couple, and pro wrestling happened to be on TV. So for the first time that I recall, I laid eyes on pro wrestling. And if I remember correctly, it was wasn't Hulk Hogan, but it was a hulking, blonde, muscular wrestler in tights. And for a young boy of 6, I think that every boy out there tries to and aspires by innate design to want to, how could you say, like, reach out and identify with masculine power. And there's no other incarnation of masculinity which is so prevalent and so visceral to a young boy as is muscle and superhero characteristics. So that's where I think, like, for me, pro wrestling resonated at a very young age, and I was able to latch onto that. And it caught my fancy. I just knew right from that moment that this was something special.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. You were trained by the legendary Canadian pro wrestler Lance Storm. He's one of the best Canadian performers out there. What was it like being trained by Lance Storm to get you into the business?
What was it like? Yeah.
Yes.
I would say, Lance was a very pedant, very detail-oriented coach. The thing is, he just broke it in 1990 himself. So the thing is, him and Chris Jericho, they got in together, and originally, they were called Sudden Impact, and I became friends with Chris in Calgary, and then I became training partners with Lance at a local gym called The Gym. And for 1 year, 3 days a week, we'd go to this gym together and train. And the one day Lance just said to me, he says that, I see the passion that you have for this business, for pro wrestling. And if you want, I'll train you. And to this day, Lance has never asked for a penny of my money. He trained me out of friendship. And I remember there was a promoter at that time called Ed Langley. And he's actually, the story of Langley is also detailed in Chris Jericho's book, Alliance Tale. But the thing is that Ed Langley hated my guts. He just absolutely despised me. I was his ring announcer. I was the ring announcer from 1992, from the fall of 92 all the way to through part of 93, because I was dropped for a while because of the heat that I had with Ed Langley. And I said to Lance that, Ed hates my guts, and Ed runs the business, and the ring was at this Victoria Park Civic Center in Calgary. And I said, what if Ed doesn't want me there? And Lance said, well, if Ed doesn't want you, then I won't do it. There's another guy coming out from Australia, and he needed a training partner for this guy, right? So I was the training partner for the guy coming from Australia. And the thing is, this guy from Australia was coming on the off season of the Hart Brothers wrestling camp. So there was no class in session. So he he had no training partner otherwise. So Lance went to bat for me, and he stood up for me, and the rest is history. So I got trained. My other coach was Jason the Terrible. So Carl Moffitt from Stampede Wrestling. So I had 2 coaches, and these 2 guys were the ones that are, responsible for launching me into the world of pro wrestling.
Great story.
No, that's an awesome story. Thank you for sharing that with us, StarBuck. I have to ask you, I'm sure a lot of viewers want to know that the name, the Rebel, StarBuck.
Yeah.
Wow. Such an amazing, one of the coolest nicknames I ever heard in pro wrestling history. How did that come about?
Well, you know, the funny thing is people always ask me, why did you name yourself after a coffee chain? And I say, I didn't. You know, StarBuck, the reason why I capitalized the B, even though it's one word, StarBuck, is because it's a combination of two words. Star, which is self-explanatory, and buck, which is Southern, like Texas slang for stud or real man, right?
Oh.
That guy's a buck, right? So that's what it is, StarBuck. And the thing is that I originally kind of took the name from the Battlestar Galactica series. You know, back in the day, it was, what was the name of the guy that on the original series? Was it Dirk Benedict or whoever it was? But anyway, back in the day, the early the 70s version of Battlestar Galactica, you know, there was Lieutenant StarBuck. You know, and the thing is, in 2000, I also started my band Stoner Kings, and I figured I don't want to be just like Joe Schmo. I don't want to be just another John Doe. You know, I'd rather be known as a character name. I wanted my guys in the band to have character names, like Blackie Lawless from Wasp. That's not his real name. You realize that, right? You know, Nikki Sixx from Motley Crue. That is not his real name. Alice Cooper is not the man's real name. You know, so the thing is that rock and roll is infiltrated, or is like perforated with names, artistic names that have no credence to the person's real identity. You know, so in that sense, with me taking an artist name approach to Stoner Kings, and you know, it's like, you know, I was StarBuck. My bassist was Gonzo. My guitarists were Shank and Wolf. My drummer was named Crash. You know, and the thing is that it's because I did that on purpose. I always said Stoner Kings was like pro wrestling in musical form. And that's what it was to me. So the thing is that I chose the name at that time because of the fact that I somehow got this brainchild of an idea from the Battlestar Galactica series, inspired by, not that I was ever a fan of the series, but just the name Lieutenant StarBuck or Captain StarBuck, whatever. And I thought to myself, that sounds cool, you know. And then I just took it, and then I just gave it my own twist, which, like I just explained, was Star, which is self-explanatory, Buck, which means real man or stud.
And you are a stud, sir. Absolutely. No denying that.
Well, you know, the thing is, I always say that I'm the last of a dying breed. I'm one of the dinosaurs, you know, because nowadays, you know, with all the gender obscurity and the 72 gender identities in Canada alone and whatnot, it's like, I actually posted something on Facebook the other day, which I thought was really funny. It tickled my own fancy, at least. And it was that, you know, nowadays that we all get to choose our own pronouns, oh, you can just call me boss or king.
You're both.
That is so true.
Yeah.
That is very
some
true,
Boss King.
especially these days.
Yeah, Boss King. There you go.
Your new name. Your new name.
That's
Boss
a new band. Yeah, Boss King.
Yeah, there's so much monikers in professional wrestling right now. There's like so much shows and so much promotions, and yeah, I mean, every time like we see an up and coming wrestler, there's always a moniker that they always take from another source, or like another name from the past. So it's unique. It's so vast right now in the industry.
Well, the thing is, it's like whatever has been done before it's tried and true. You know, that you got to realize that, you know, all the great stars, there's, you know, Jake Roberts said it so well. He said that these guys today will never connect on the level that his generation connected. The Macho Mans, the Jake the Snakes, the Honky Tonk Mans, the Hulk Hogans, people like this. They connected on a very deep level with people, whereas today the difference is that with people's ultra short attention spans due to the social media influx and just everything being easy in, easy out, fast food culture. With Google, you know, your response comes in a fraction of a second. You don't have to think for yourself. You don't have to like really see any trouble or go through any trouble to get your answers to find things out. It's way too easy. It's become automated. And I think that's reflected in the fact that wrestling nowadays, people, they don't have the attention span or the patience to go through how could you say, like an 80s style match they would find it maybe perhaps boring. And now I think that that's actually maybe a fallacy in and of itself, because I think that if you have two guys that can really do the job correctly, it's whatever flew back then will still fly today, because first of all, what's old is new. And second of all, the guys today and the girls today can't wrestle that style anymore. So if you have two people that go out there and wrestle, let's say like Billy Robinson, Dory Funk Jr., if you had two guys who can actually do that job with a modern flair, like with giving it a modern twist, I think people go gonzo bonkers for it. And I think it was proven with Walter and Ilya Dragunov in NXT. NXT UK, is that they went out there, they did this like very similar match to, let's say, what something like Ric Flair versus Ronnie Garvin would have been in 1987. They beat the living fuck out of each other, excuse my French, but they beat the living tar out of each other. And the thing is that match was talked about to a large degree by all the people like Shawn Michaels, Triple H, and all them that went online and actually, gave them praise and kudos for that, because of the fact that it stood out. It was an entirely different breed of animal than what you see today in either WWE or then in AEW or on the Indies, or even largely what you would see in even New Japan. I mean, it was a different breed of cat. It was a throwback. That match was a throwback. So the thing is that whatever is old is actually new nowadays. It's an old wisdom. It's always been around. But the problem is that you have so few of these guys and girls that can do this style. Maybe Serena Deeb in AEW. I know Serena from my time in Japan. We work for the same company, and I think she's the best female wrestler today in North America. I think nobody can touch her, no matter how much they ballyhoo over Becky and Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair, people like that, and they say that they're great. Yeah, and they are. They're really good. Or even Thunder Rosa in AEW, but nobody can touch Serena Deeb. Serena is a cut above. And if you know the business, if you know what you're looking at, if you're a booker, or if you've been in the industry for a long time, you have a critical eye to be able to assess and see and like break down what you see, you will know who is worth their stock and who is not, who's carrying the ball and who is like carrying the flag into battle, who is the leader and who is the follower. And Serena Deeb is cut above the rest. But I'm just saying that with people like Serena and Walter, there are so few of these around today that's why most of the newer talents will choose to do something which relies on what we call the dopamine kick, which is just spots. So you give the brain something to visualize, the eyes something to visualize, which then transfers to your brain. Your brain releases dopamine, and it's the same dopamine kick that you get from, let's say, that you get from social media likes. If you're, like a social media junkie and you live off your followers and your likes and your comments and shit like that. Or if, it's the same thing that happens when you view porn. It's the same thing that, when you inject heroin, honestly, it is. It's a dopamine kick, and your brain is wired a certain way to respond to certain stimuli. And with wrestling, with everything, just one fantastic move after another. I just watched NXT War Games, the latest one from this past weekend today. And I looked at the guys match. The girls match was just garbage, but the guys match was really good. And I was really surprised at how good it was. But the thing is that it was one dopamine kick after another. And it's just the way that it is nowadays. They don't know how to slow down. They don't know how to pace it, or then they don't have the patience to do so, or then they're not even allowed to do so. So that's where Jake the Snake said, just coming back to what I was just referring to a second ago, was Jake said that the guys nowadays will never get over like the people of his generation, because in his time, they connected with people's emotions. They triggered your emotional register. They hit you on your heartstrings. But today, all they're doing is they're popping your dopamine level. And that's why dopamine is very, how could you say, it's very selfish, right? Your brain, once it gets the dopamine kick, it's like, oh, that was cool. Okay, what's next? It doesn't care what it saw a moment ago. That kick is gone in a flash. It's up and down. It's like jerking your blood sugar up and down, right? And eating like energy drinks or drinking energy drinks and whatnot, right? That's really what it is. It's just it's throwing your blood sugar out of whack, your glycogen levels. But the thing is, that's where everybody remembers Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair. Everybody remembers the Four Horsemen. Everybody remembers Jake the Snake Roberts. Doesn't matter how many matches Jake ever won, but everybody remembers him. Right. And this is why, is because they touch you on an emotional level. That's what's missing, I think, in wrestling these days, actually.
Well put.
Excellent insight. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Speaking of another wrestling legend, you've worked a lot with Tajiri, the Japanese buzzsaw. You've had matches with him all around the world. What does he mean to you in your career and the experience working with him?
Well, you know, the thing is that in 2010, I brought Tajiri to Finland. I formulated this deal with, it was the biggest nightclub chain in Finland at the time, for an annual wrestling show that I came up with in 2006, called the Winter War. And the thing is that because I made this deal with this nightclub chain. They kind of went into the deal with me, and they gave me a budget, and they gave me a price, and they threw some money down on the table, and they said, get us a star that's going to draw people to this event. And I thought to myself, as a kid, you know, I was sitting there like a kid at a candy store, and I'm thinking to myself that who am I going to ask? Who's available at that time in 2010? At the end of 2009, actually, this is like when I made the deal. And the thing is that at the time, guys like, let's say, Sean Morley, Val Venus had just been let go by WWE. Like the WWE product was just off of TV in 2009 in Finland. They got dropped from free access television. And I thought, who's going to be fresh enough? And I thought to myself, well, people will still remember, like, you know, the 80s. They'll still remember maybe Honky Tonk Man. You know, he was still around, you know, and available back then and things like that. And then at some point, I thought to myself, Tajiri. Well, he was just there. I think he was let go in 2007, at the beginning of 2007, if not 2006. And I thought to myself that in Finland, we had Smackdown on television since 2002. And the thing is that people would still probably remember Tajiri because he was there for about 5-6 years, and he was featured rather well. So it came down to actually choosing between Honky Tonk Man and choosing between Tajiri. And I think that I made the right choice with Tajiri, because the thing is that I brought him here. I had this match, and it was like over 20 minutes that we wrestled, and then the people were red hot for it. And the place was popping. Had about 300 people on hand, which is not all that big. But then you got to take into consideration that, like, in Finland, wrestling is a fringe product. It's a fringe thing because it hasn't been here. It's like domestically, we've only had wrestling now in Finland for 18 years, since 2003. So we have no culture. Like in England, they've had it for like 100 years. Not here. Right. So the thing is that 300 was still a decent house. And the thing is, the people were, like I said, they were red hot. They were screaming and yelling and coming out of their seats. And after the match, Tajiri says to me, "You want to go to Japan?" I said, "Hell yeah, I do." And he says, "I think the Japanese people would really like your charisma." And that's the one thing that, the reason I got booked, and the reason why I convinced Tajiri wasn't just like my wrestling prowess. It was over and above that. It was the number one factor that I understood what he's looking for in talents, because he just had started this company, or he was going to start this company called Smash, was charisma. And the funny thing is that I debuted for his company it was the 24th of July, 2010. And on the same day, I wrestled 2 matches. There was this afternoon show, and then there was an evening show. On the afternoon show, I beat Hajime Ohara. And then on the evening show, I defeated Tajiri, and I took back the Finnish title off him. He had beaten one of my students for it prior to that, a couple of months prior to that. And then I came back and I took it off him. And I became a star overnight in Japan. It's literally an overnight sensation. After that, all the medias were talking about me. Tokyo Sports talking about me, right? Samurai TV talking about me. Weekly Pro Wrestling talking about me. And at the end of the year, in 2010, Weekly Pro Wrestling Magazine, at the time, the only pro wrestling magazine in the country, the only one. They used to have Weekly Gong and all those before. They're done. I mean, there's only one magazine there. So, but the readership of that magazine voted amongst all companies like All Japan, New Japan, Noah, whatnot, this, that, the other, for the top matches of each company, the best match of the year, the MVP of the year, wrestler of the year, this, that, the other. I was voted in that magazine in the top 5 most popular gaijin amongst all companies in Japan. I mean, on the same list, like you got Kenny Omega, right? I was in the top 5.
Wow.
I'd been there for only 7 months.
Wow.
Or no, sorry, not 7 months. Like I said, July. So I'd been there for just over 5 months. And so you understand, like, it was astronomical. My rise to public acclaim was meteoric, and the people just loved me. And I asked, I was really taken aback by this, and I asked so many people. I asked the TV production people from Broncos. Broncos was the company that filmed Smash, and they also filmed All Japan. Nowadays they do New Japan. I asked them, and then I asked my good friend. Nowadays he's the doctor for New Japan, but his name is Hiroki Terasaki, and he's a cardiovascular surgeon in Tokyo. I asked him, and he's a good friend to this day. I asked some other people, and I asked them all the same question: why do the people in Japan like me so much? Why am I so popular? Because I didn't understand it, because I don't believe my own bullshit. And they all said the same thing. They said charisma. They said, it feels like you're up here and all the Japanese people are looking up at you, and they're trying to reach you. They're trying to extend their arms to reach you, to touch you, but they can't reach you. That's what it feels like. And I don't know, maybe it's just, there's an innate quality in some of us. It's like, maybe it's a cultural thing. Maybe it's in my upbringing. Maybe it's in my personality and my character. Maybe it's my personal faith in Jesus Christ. I don't know, but I don't know what it is. But the thing is that I have something that the Japanese identified with en masse, which made me a star overnight in that country, which I'm eternally going to be grateful for. I mean, at my time in Japan, more or less, was a 4-year period that I was the top gaijin for Tajiri's companies, WNC, Wrestling New Classic, and for Smash. I was the top gaijin for him and his companies. I was propositioned by New Japan Pro Wrestling in 2012. They said that you are now at the point where you have to make the move. You've got to come over. And I said, I went to lunch with them, and I sat there, and I said to them, you know what? Mr. Tajiri needs me now more than ever, because he had just lost his money man with Smash, and he had just started WNC, and he had another money man, but the money wasn't as much as it was in Smash. And the thing is that he had restructured his business, and he's starting over again. But he had opened the door for me to come to Japan. I said that Mr. Tajiri he needs me now more than ever. I'm his top gaijin. I am his top foreign wrestler. I cannot leave him now. I turned down New Japan out of loyalty, to stay loyal to Tajiri. Wow. To help him build his company. I had the chance to go to Japan.
Wow.
Amazing.
Huge. It's a huge, a major props to you, sir, for that, for staying loyal. There's a lot of people in sports, especially pro wrestling, that, loyalty is tough to come by, but what you did for him, that's amazing. It's amazing.
Well, the thing is, I remember there was a guy called Matsuzawa who used to be one of the Smash and WNC, the office guys. And he was, he spoke English well, and he was, he always liked to hang out with the wrestlers. And sometimes, with the office guys, we'd go out for dinner or go out for lunch or whatever. And one day, Matsuzawa, he took me out, and we had this talk. And I said that, the wrestling business is full of good wrestlers, but that's not really what you're looking for. You're looking for good people. Mm. And if you find a wrestler who's a good wrestler and a good person in the same package, then you hit the jackpot. But these are not, these they don't grow on trees. They're not easy to come by. There's a lot of real pricks in the wrestling business, a lot of assholes, a lot of people that sell their mother or their grandmother down the river to get over on you, you know? So the thing is, it's like, I think that's the whole thing, is that if, you know, you're going to be known for your reputation in any industry whatsoever, but people will know you for your reputation. If you establish a solid reputation where somebody knows that you're rock solid, when somebody knows that when they look in your eyes, they shake your hand, when they converse with you, when they're around you, they know there's something about, just like the animals, you know, it's like wolves. Wolves can smell fear, and they'll tear you apart if they smell fear. But the same thing can be said with human beings, that there's something that sets us apart. You can, somebody who's let's say a racist, you don't have to even have them talk. There's something about them that will emit that vibe that these people, it's just not doable. And that's where I think that, like, if there's some, you know, if somebody's a good person, if somebody's a decent human being, if somebody's a quality individual, they don't have to go out there, you know, wear that on their sleeve, but it's going to show in some way, shape, or form. It always does, because what's on the inside always permeates the outside.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing that story with us, StarBuck. Wow, that's amazing. It touched my heart, your story there.
All right.
It touched
Yeah,
my
definitely.
heart. I was almost gonna start crying. I don't want to do that right now. But no, that was an amazing story. Thank you.